This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And a good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of The Express. Gary Allen with you, and I'm so pleased to have you join me this evening. It's been a couple of weeks since I joined you. I took a little bit of time off and had a little bit of fun. As you know, I'm also doing the 9 to 5 radio stuff, so every once in a while I need to take a little time, a little breather for myself. First and foremost, we have a great guest tonight, and I'll introduce him to you in just a couple of minutes. But I want to remind everybody, Randy Jones, I just want to say thank you out there. I know you're watching or listening, rather, and I thank all my listeners for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me every Tuesday night. I appreciate that very much. Without you, there's no real reason to do this show. For those of you that want to stay up to what's going on with me, go to Facebook at Gary Allen, A-L-A-N, YouTube.com, Gary Allen, The Express. Thursday night, this program will repeat itself at 7 p.m. on Diversity Broadcast Network. Go to progressivevoices.com. And starting a couple of Saturdays ago, you can go to 247thesound.com at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm not even up at 5 a.m., folks. Actually, I'm up at 5:30 on Saturdays because I produce 2 shows at my radio station. You can go to 247thesound.com and you can catch this program there, as well as TuneIn, Google Play, Apple's app, etc. And I appreciate everything and everyone out there for taking the time to listen to us and to give us your attention. My guest tonight is a gentleman who was brought to me by some friends of mine. This is an extraordinary gentleman altogether, Mr. David Loshelder, and he's written a wonderful book, Take Care of Number One So You Don't Step into Number Two, 7 Ways to Manage Yourself so that you can effectively lead others. This is a fabulous book. It's a great book. It's a wonderful read. It's a good read. Let me tell you a little bit about David. David has a bachelor's degree from Pennsylvania State University and a master's degree from Duquesne University. He's an author of the book Protect Yourself, Top 10 Life-Saving Self-Defense Techniques. He also lectures to corporations, associations, civic groups, and universities on personal achievement and leadership. He lives in just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with his lovely wife and his children. And it is a pleasure to have this gentleman on this program, David Loshelder. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time to be on with us here on The Express.
No, thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope I didn't murder the name too bad.
No, it's good.
Before we get going here a little bit, this book of yours, which is on leadership, that it's an easy, as I was browsing through this book, and believe me, I've got so many bookmarks on it as I've gone through from different chapter to different chapter, and I was thinking about leadership just from a layman's point of view. And I said this to you the other day on the phone, that from time to time when I've been put in the position or have seen people who are leaders, the people who want leadership, who gravitate towards it, who yearn for it, don't always necessarily make the greatest leaders. The people who are the quiet ones, who never really want to, they just want to be part of whatever's going on and they're not looking to lead anybody, they turn out to be the ones that have their heads on straight and probably are better leaders than the ones that are the leaders. Do you agree with that or disagree?
No, I agree. I've seen it myself. I think we've all seen it where, the leadership is where, someone is walking the walk and talking the talk. They're consistent with that. And someone who wants to be a leader and thinks that they need to boss people around is a whole different scenario. I think the behavior really comes first, and people notice that. People notice behavior. They notice, this person cares about other people. They want the best for the organization. They want the best for the people that work for the organization, and those are the people that truly do lead, and people do follow those leaders. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because when you have someone who is believing in a cause and people catch on to that. And then when they catch on to that, they do want to follow that person because they trust that person. And that's where the trust comes in. And once you have that trust, then you're able to help other people come along. And you really, for their best interest, for that cause is really something that's really important.
Well, you have an athletic background. You're definitely in the martial arts. You've won a number of awards over the years, international awards as well as national awards for your karate and kwando and et cetera, et cetera. And I've always found in the athletic arena that the men who are the best leaders are the ones who lead by example instead of just shooting off their big mouth that they are the leader, as you just said a few seconds ago in response to my first question. Mm-hmm. And I take into account a gentleman who I got to know when I was just a little boy, because my older brother Michael played professional football, and that was Johnny Unitas. John didn't have much to say, but when he was in that huddle, he commanded the respect of the players, but he led by example. And I can think of baseball players and football and basketball players. One basketball player in particular, Isaiah Thomas, who plays for the Boston Celtics, he leads by example. Now, Larry Bird, on the other hand, one of my heroes, as an older gentleman, he would shoot off his mouth, but boy, he could back it up. So, I mean, there's a double-edged sword there, but I've always thought the guy that leads by example is probably the better leader than someone who just shoots off their mouth, and we've already kind of covered that. Let's move on to something that I've always found interesting, and of course you talk about it in your book, and you kind of bring that up in the sense of it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's what you do with it when you get back up. And for some reason, some people allow that to defeat themselves. They get knocked down a couple of times and they stay down, or they hold a grudge instead of brushing it off and moving on. How do you respond to that? Because I know you use, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on, you use Roethlisberger from the Pittsburgh Steelers as an example. You know, quarterbacks get knocked down a lot, but they get right back up again and they get in the saddle. But some people out there, which holds them back, they just allow themselves to keep getting knocked down and they don't come back.
Yeah, it's a basic psychology of conditioning that you have. You try something and you get hurt. Okay, if that's emotionally or that's physically, you just don't want that to happen again. So you learn very quickly, like if I do this one thing over and over and over again, I keep getting hurt, then eventually you're going to stop. And so I think you become fearful, and then you do something similar, and you think, well, it's related, so I might get hurt, and that might hurt, so you don't try it. Mm-hmm. And they did an experiment with 1967. Those two psychologists did an experiment with a dog, and they put this dog, it's called a shuttle box, and they divided the box where the dog could jump over this piece of wood. And so they would shock the dog on one side, and the dog got smart. They would jump over to the other side. They would shock it again, and they would go back and forth. And then they took out the divider, and they electrified the whole floor. They shocked the whole floor. The dog had nowhere to go, and eventually the dog just gave up, just whimpered, went on his back, and just kind of sort of cried, whimpered. And they coined that term, learned helplessness, where there was no other option but just to give up. And so they have many experiments about this. And so, with us, I'm sure all of us have had this where we've been told not to do that, or have been, told you that's ridiculous. You've hurt in a certain way by someone that said something to you. And eventually, over and over the course of time, you just find yourself helpless of not trying anymore. And so you find yourself in this state of like almost a point where you don't even try anymore, where okay, I can't do this, I'm never going to do it. Then all of a sudden your self-talk takes over, and then there's a certain point where it's like, well, I'm not worthy, and then eventually you really do give up. And that's really the problem with that, is that the most successful people overcome that. They say, okay, I made a mistake, this did hurt, but they have hope, they have the possibility, and they know that they learn from every mistake, And when they learn from it, they learn something from it. And then from there, then they're able to say, okay, I can do this because I've had success in the past. Right. Even though I failed, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's a difference between someone saying, I'll never be able to do it, and someone that says, I will be able to do it.
Yeah. My father always had a saying that millions of other people have, that pretty much the same saying, and I've heard it all my life. If you show me someone who's never failed, I'll show you someone who's never tried. But there are a lot of people out there that allow themselves to be fooled that they can't accomplish something just because somebody tells them they can't accomplish it. And yet there are other people out there that when you tell them the very same thing, you can't do this, you can't do that, that puts even more determination within themselves to do it. Now, maybe it's not something they want to do for the rest of their life, but just to prove a point that, yes, I can do it. And it does open up the possibilities of a lot of different things. What is your definition of true leadership? And you can go through whether it's business, sports, or whatever you want to do. But is there one defining sentence or paragraph that can succinctly put it into what leadership really is?
One word: vision. I think that a person who has vision and is able to kind of see the future the way they want it to be, and be very clear about that, and then to be able to build that trust among other people, and to build a cause that says, okay, this is important because this is going to help a lot of other people. This is going to help society, the environment, the nation, whatever. That makes the best leaders, because they're able to see it, to envision it, and articulate it. And once they're able to do that, then be able to gain that trust from and behave that way, and have people kind of look at this and say, you know what, this is somebody I want to follow because this is where we want to go. We want to go this, not me, but we want to go. And we all do things. We have to rely on everybody else, right? Just getting up in the morning. You get a cup of coffee and eggs, and what about the eggs? And who made the eggs? And how about the chicken and the person that feeds the chicken? And pretty soon you can go on and on and on from one egg. So it's really important, I think, to understand that there is the unique ability for people to be able to see the future the way they want to see it, and to be able to articulate that. And that's my definition of a leader. And I believe that. I've seen that. I believe it. And I think it works really, really well, I think, when it's done right.
Can leadership, is true leadership, like a George Patton or a Johnny Unitas, or is it just something that people learn when they're thrown into it? And now Patton obviously went to the West Point, and our military leaders, they go and they're schooled, and I spent time in the military. Is true leadership something you're born with, and then as you go through life and you idolize, or you look at different people and you pick this up and pick that up and you pick this up as you go along to help mold you into the leader that you become, or is it just better to let it happen? I mean, are true leaders born, or can they be made and molded?
Yeah, I think this question has been asked to so many people, and you get different answers. But I believe that it's both. I believe that I think there has to be, you could give me an instrument and put me in Carnegie Hall. It won't matter how long it takes for me to learn this. I'll never be able to play in Carnegie Hall. I just know that. So I don't have the aptitude to play an instrument or whatever, the violin or whatever. So I think there has to be some aptitude there. But I also think it has to be trained as well. There are, leadership skills. There's a science behind it. There's research, a whole bunch of research, what leaders can do, and the skills and things like that. So I think the combination of both make that. And I think with that comes someone who really studies it and really works on it day in and day out, because it's not just, wake up and say, oh, I'm a leader now, I've graduated. It's a long life process. It's like, it's like I have a black belt in judo, and you get a black belt, but with the black belt, they consider you just starting to learn the art. Like that's when you actually start to understand it. It took 10 years to get a black belt, and just then you start to learn. I think that's the same thing with leadership. You have to learn that, and over time, you live it.
Yeah. We're talking to David Loshelder, the writer and author of Take Care of Number One so you don't step into number two. Gary Allen with you here on The Express. David, let's talk a little bit. When you're deciding what you want to do in your personal life or in your professional life, let's just say your professional life for a moment, is it not important to understand your weaknesses as well as your strengths? A good leader understands that, and he surrounds himself with the people that can make up for his weaknesses, and he surrounds people who can help improve even on his strengths. I mean, all the the really successful leaders that I have ever come across are people that surround themselves with really good, talented people, even more so than he or she is.
Absolutely. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and I think the key, and I like the question because I think the key to that is a strong leader knows them. They have a lot of self-awareness. They know what they're really good at and what they're not. And once you know that, then you need the ability to be able to see and find people that are really good at what you're not good at. And then elicit their assistance with that. And then that's how you build a good team. Any team, football team, hockey team, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, but they all play together. The Pittsburgh Penguins, just won the second Stanley Cup.
Right.
Some of the guys on the team are better defensemen. Some are, offense. They're put in those positions because they're good at those positions, and the good coach will know that you have to kind of put that together the right way. You put the pieces together the right way, and then you can design the plan. And then once you get a good plan, then you can play the game, and you play the game well. So yeah, I really do think it's both.
Yeah, I don't think everybody can be Sidney Crosby though.
No, he is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody can be Sidney Crosby any more than everybody. That's what makes a team. You need your offensive linemen, you need your D linemen, you need your backs. I mean, it's the total coming together, understanding and buying into whatever is going on. And I think, like I said, most leaders that I've ever come across that really ran their companies well or their divisions well were people that surrounded themselves with people that were even more intelligent than themselves, which means they had to leave their egos somewhere behind, because a lot of people today, their egos are huge and they can't accept somebody smarter than them around because they're afraid, hey, that person's going to steal my job. A couple of weeks ago, David, on my radio show here locally, we talked about the next generation, and every generation probably goes through this. I know I grew up in the 60s, and my parents would often look at me and my siblings and go, my God, if we're going to leave the world to you people, we are in some serious, serious trouble. Do you think that is just ego based on successful people that are a step ahead, the generation or two ahead, that they can't see the new technology and the new thinking that comes along with every generation?
Yeah, I think, and I've seen this too with the older the millennials coming up, taking over the workforce, and you have this dichotomy between the baby boomers and the millennials, and and there's a disconnect there because how do you work with someone who has worked in a company for 40 years? I mean, my dad worked in the same company for 45 years. That's unheard of now. And so then you have the younger generation coming up, bouncing from job to job, and you have this whole notion of, can they actually do this? We have these different values, these different beliefs, and then you have this the younger generation saying, okay, this is the way we should do it, and this is different. And I think the difference between the two makes it really hard for those to work together. And I think that's really the key, because it's not really they can't. It's just different values and different work ethic maybe, and there's that difference in opinion of how things should be done. Not to say they can't work together, but I do think that it makes it more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And will they be able to? Yeah. I mean, the 60s have passed, went to the 70s. Everything's okay, and everything will be okay. It's just a matter of that's a transition of those two sets of demographics working together that make it difficult.
Have you found that people, when you go to talk to corporations or you go to talk at universities or wherever you're giving a discussion and you're at a conference, whatever, do you find that athletes have been dealing with discipline and being part of a team other than an individual somehow seem to grasp the idea of leadership and are able to deal with it a lot better than people who have never been around an organization like an athletic endeavor or something along those lines, or someone who's never been in the military? Do you find people, military or athletes, can deal with the team concept of weaknesses and strengths to make the team even better?
The short answer is yes. I have. I've seen that. I mean, I did a lot of hiring as a previous manager, and the people that I've seen that were really successful did come from athletic backgrounds. They were able to work with the team because they're used to working with people to achieve a goal. And I think when you're put in that environment, and you have to rely on someone else, to score the point.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing, and you have to have that trust with each other to say, okay, this is our goal, and you may drop the ball, I may drop the ball, but we have to trust each other. We're going to catch the ball and we're going to reach this goal. And I think that's really a true aspect of that, is people that can grow up in an athletic background, because it's more than that, right? It's you learn discipline, you learn skills, you learn how to work with people. The whole gamut is there. And then when you transition from that environment to a work environment, which is very team-oriented now, then it works really well. And I think it's really important to understand, that, sports and business are very similar.
Yeah. Before we get into the book, and we will do that in just a couple of seconds here, I just have one question. When you go and you give your lectures at corporations, after you're done, and of course I'm sure you do a Q&A time period, what's the most often asked question of you?
The most often asked question is, what does it take to be a leader? And the answer is a culmination of what we've been talking about. And I answer actually pretty simply by saying, like I said before, to what it takes to be a leader is commitment to the vision of what you see and the people around you, and trusting the people around you to be able to reach that goal.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to get into the book here. We're talking to David Loshelder, who is the author of Take Care of Number One So You Don't Step into Number Two, which I thought was a great. Where did you come up with the title anyway?
I was at a book. I was at a book signing. It was a bunch of authors. We were like a panel of authors, and we were giving our deal on our book, and that question came up. Like, where do you get that? And it's funny because it was almost like a joke. A while back, I was working with some people, with some athletes, and then in business, and I would just come up with that. I think somebody said it, and I just kind of caught it. I thought I made it up, but I didn't. And I would say, listen, you got to take care of number one so you don't step to number two. And they all giggle and laugh. So then after a while, I would say in the office, remember, take care of number one. It would finish my sentence, And so it really was funny. But it was kind of almost a joke. And I thought to myself, I'm always going to write a book with this title. Mm-hmm. And so my friend's like, no, you're not. I was like, yes, I am. And so eventually I did. And I was like, I got to write this book. So, but yeah, it was, I did lectures for a long time. I built the program around it and started to write the book. And I thought, well, this would be a really clever title for radio.
Yeah, well, it is.
Yeah,
it is because it conjures up a whole lot of different thoughts. Let's get into the book. Stop being, in chapter 1, the title, Stop Being the Puppet in Someone's Puppet Show. And you write here in the very first couple of paragraphs, I had always subscribed to the notion that if I win the big one, I was the best. Later in my career, I realized that maybe I would not have been the best. I may have been the best on that day, but if that day was played over 100 times, there would have been many winners, statistically speaking. However, I did not win that day, and that is the point. When you give everything you have, practice the best you know how, train hard, play hard, you do not play for the moment. You play for a lifetime. You build skills, experience, and knowledge every time you put yourself through the paces. There are no guarantees that you will win a competition. However, it is up to you to define winning. What is success in winning to you?
To me,
Mm-hmm.
it's to continue to try and to fight hard and to build the skills to help others. Because the reason I wrote that is because in my background, I wanted to make the Olympics and judo, and that was my goal when I was younger. And so, I really wanted to win a national championship. I mean, that was the number one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to say I was a national champion. I visualized myself with the gold medal around my neck, standing on the podium, and it was one of the things I really wanted. And if 5 years went by and I won third place 5 years in a row, I was like, oh, geez, what does it take to win a national championship? And so it turns out, after all those years, I retired from competition, went to graduate school, started my career. And only then I realized that all that heartache and all the training nationally, internationally, given everything I have, days, weekends, nights, whatever, really did pay off because I gained so much skill and so much experience. When I started to give back to others, I had so much to give. And I didn't win. It didn't matter if I won the national championship. It didn't matter if I went to the Olympics because I had the experience and I gave it my all and I gave everything I had. And it didn't. And so with that, I just had a huge amount of experience and skill to give to others. And I was able to do that. And it was so exciting to know that I could make someone so much better. And that's why I wrote that, because I thought it was so important that people understand, if you set a goal and you don't reach it, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you tried to get it. And you have to look back into yourself and say, wow, I really have I'm a different person than I was because I set that goal. And it made me better by striving for it than actually reaching it. And I think that's something that I think everybody should realize.
I heard when I was a very, very young man, and my father and mother would repeat it to all of us, that whatever goal you set for yourself, if you manage to get halfway there, then you've got it beat better than most people.
Yes, exactly.
Because at least you tried. Yeah, because
yes.
At least you tried, The concept of winning, it's funny. And I love that first part of your book where you talk about, well, today I won, but if we replayed this day 100 times over, there would be other winners. It's amazing in the world of sports, for instance, which is where you come from, how people want to say, oh, well, so-and-so won the Super Bowl. They're the best. Well, they're the best for this year or the best for this day. But if they went up against other Super Bowl teams, who knows how well they would do. It's like right now the College World Series is going on, and the Florida Gators, I guess, are going to win that. And I'm a University of Miami guy, so I'm not very much in love with the Gators at all in any way, shape, or form. But they're playing very well today. They're not the best team in the College World Series, but they're the best team that has been there for the last week to 2 weeks playing. And I think that's what you're trying to say. Not every time that you go out are you going to win. Not every day is it going to be the best day, whatever you do. But the experience of getting out there and doing it is well worth the attempt and the effort to get out there, because you never know what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember my dad said I was also a high school wrestler, and he says, you had, even when I lose, he said, at least you had the guts to get out there one on one and wrestle this guy. That takes a lot of courage. And, that meant a lot to me because I was like, it does take a lot of courage because, leadership takes a lot of courage, because there is no guarantee. And, you are going to fall on your face and things aren't going to go your way. But through that experience that that's okay because that's all part of the process. I know we're going through the book, but, winners, I said, winners get hit and they like it because they know that when they get hit, it's like now we're playing the game, and if I don't get hit, we're not playing the game. I got to get knocked down because I want to get back up because I like the competition. I like the feeling of the challenge, and that makes that makes a winner, and I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, I think competition is a very healthy thing. Yet there are people out there who are striving in their professions and that don't like competition, which I don't understand. Competition makes you better. Now, really, in essence, you do compete with yourself, probably first and foremost, because you are the roughest one on yourself. But I don't understand people who don't like competition, that want to clear everything away. And I don't want to get involved in the political arena too much, but we got a guy sitting in the White House now that has the thinnest skin of anybody I've ever come across in my life. Never liked him, won't like him, never can. I can't stomach him. I think he's a pathological liar. And he's not a good leader, David. He's just not a good leader because if it doesn't go his way, then it's a lie or it's a fake coming from somebody else. In reality, he's a pathological liar. And that's what I think is going to bring him down. And I don't think he would benefit. Well, he might benefit from your program, but he probably wouldn't listen. Because that's another thing. He doesn't read books and he doesn't really listen. And that's another thing too. Getting back to the thin skin, true leaders are not thin skinned. They know how to bend with the wind and they understand how to take a hit, like you said, and they're willing to get back into the arena and take another hit. This guy doesn't take hits. He bullies back, but he doesn't bully back in the right way to play fair with anybody. He doesn't, so that's my take on him. Let's talk about the trials and tribulations of becoming a leader or getting on that road of success. Not every day are you going to win. And therefore, you have to understand that there's going to be losses. But through the losses is where you learn more than through the victories.
Yeah, I use the analogy of working out for this because you set a goal, you have a vision, and it's not a straight shot. It's never a straight shot. Like I'm going to do, especially a long range goal. It's never a straight shot. You hear the analogy from a plane leaving from Pittsburgh to Honolulu. It's off course 90% of the time because there's an air pocket, there's wind, and it gets and the pilot adjusts, to make the plane straight. But then it lands on a dime in Honolulu. So it's like that where if you're lifting weights, for example, and you have this, and you want to lift 200 pounds, let's say, for example, and you start off and you're lifting 100 pounds, and one day a week goes by and you get a little stronger and you lift 110 pounds, but then the next week you just don't feel well, so you lift 90 pounds. Well, do you just give up and say, well, I just got weaker, I'm done, why lift weights? No, you come back, you had a bad day, you had a bad week maybe, you had a cold or whatever, you come back and now you're lifting 120, and then you drop down a little bit. Now I lift 125, 119, and then pretty soon, but if you track it all the way up, the worst day you had, 3 weeks from now, or 10, or let's say, 6 weeks from now, is better than the best day you had at week 3, because you've gained that you've gained that skill or that strength or whatever. So you have to kind of stick with it, and I think that's the stick with itness of this whole thing is really the really important part, because it's like the getting hit and you like it type of thing, where it's okay to get hit and get knocked back, because you're going to get knocked back. So you're going to have a good day, you have a bad day, But as long as you stay focused on the ultimate goal, that won't matter because you can get beat around. But as long as you stay focused, then you're able to kind of stay straight, and you're always bringing yourself back to that, to center, and then you can kind of you're really at true north at that point. And I think that's really something that true leaders are outstanding at, is they can really stay the course and always see the end goal.
And you said a word that's very, very important, and that's stay focused. I think no matter what you're trying to achieve in life, whether it's playing a piano or throwing a football better than somebody else, even with the setbacks, I think if you stay focused, like you said, that's very important. And people do lose focus from time to time, and that's human. That's naturally to be expected. But the true leaders keep their head above everyone else and don't allow themselves to have the setbacks that set them back for very long. And I guess that's where you either catch fish or I forget what the expression is. You cut fish or bait, whatever that expression is. That separates the men from the boys. Okay, as far as true leaders, is staying focused, is to maintain that focus. Do you find that very difficult for some people to maintain?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of endurance that comes with this too, where you have the clear vision, but then staying focused on that is hard. I mean, think about, okay, and I say I want to lose 20 pounds, and it sounds great that first week you're really good, you're exercising, you have your diet. And then, like, the second week, you're like, man, I'm really hungry. And then you kind of like, well, then you start making excuses. And then all of a sudden, you eat a little more. And you go, well, maybe I don't want to, because I don't want to run today. And then you get off track. You're like, why can't I lose 20 pounds? And it's the discipline with that is so important, because it's not just a focus. It's a discipline to stay motivated, to stay on track, and to keep yourself on track. And
right.
Having other people help you, and have other, surrounding yourself with people that are with that vision also helps too, because as a leader, you're taking not just yourself but a group of people to something greater, and to have the same culture, the established culture, to be able to kind of drive that to that vision is super important. And so that also helps too by the greatest athletes. Michael Jordan had a coach. Andre Agassi had a coach. Pete Sampras had a coach. You name it. Everybody had a really good coach. And so that's something that leaders also have too, is they have people around them who can keep them on track as well. And so it really is a symbiotic relationship, I think, with a team of people that is really kind of striving to reach a greater cause.
Yeah, because the coach will keep pushing you to do your best to expand upon who you are. We're talking to David Loshelder, who is the author of Take Care of Number One, so you don't step into number two. Gary Allen with you here on the Express. David, let's move on to chapter 2, which I found a very interesting chapter, as I have for the whole book. This is a great read. You really need to get this book, folks. And they can go where? To Amazon and to your website as well, and pick up the book, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's also www.takecareofnumber1.com. That's all written out. Takecareofnumber1.com.
Yeah, and I've been remiss in not telling people where to go. But chapter 2 is kind of cool. 3 things that are keeping you from succeeding. And number 1, and I'll just bring up each one, and then you can say what you want on it. And one is gravitational pull. And you wrote in here, you pull yourself down by the beliefs that hold you, that hold, and what you say to yourself. Yeah, these self-improved limits create a ceiling for your potential. What do you mean by that? In other words, it puts a stopgap on you?
Yeah, typically, like we mentioned earlier, is the fact that people hold themselves back, and they really do it themselves. It's their belief system, it's their self-esteem, it's self-efficacy. All that stuff affects your ability to pull yourself forward. Mm-hmm. And if you feel that you don't deserve it, then you're not going to try. Mm-hmm. Because there's no reason why, because you don't feel you can. So the first thing, that the gravity of life is the analogy, is there's always something pulling on you. And the first one is is your self-limiting beliefs, your self-doubt. And you really have to get over that and really kind of turn that around and start to use your self-talk and use your belief system to say, look, I'm going to give this a shot. And, if it doesn't work, that's okay. But me just trying is going to be something that I'm just going to do it. No matter what someone says, I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to believe that I can do it. And that's really kind of the first part of it. You have to start from the inside out.
Yeah. I also think that risk-taking is very important to get yourself out of your comfort zone in order to start to achieve things. Because, again, I go with the adage, and I think you would agree with this in so many words or less in your book, that the more you put yourself out there, whatever it is, you just never know what you're going to find on the other end that may move you in a new and positive direction, and you'll have another learning experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when there's always a causal effect. Like when you do something, it's always attached to something else that you can't see, that you don't know. That one person that you talk to at a networking event could lead to something incredible for your business. That one person that you met at a party that introduces you to your future wife, you wouldn't have known that. And you don't know who your future wife is, but that one person would do that. And that kind of thing is really that's a risk taking that really kind of makes a difference, because you really can find some great rewards in giving yourself the opportunity to try things that really aren't really that comfortable for you.
In the whole, you talk about the ceiling, breaking the ceiling, getting out of your comfort zone, and that's all part of chapter 2. But now let's move on to gravitational pull, the people themselves. And you have a wonderful statement here by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. We judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while others judge us by what we have already done. And that I found quite interesting. People look at us for what we have accomplished, not the direction we're going in necessarily. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that picking your friends are really important, because we've all been around people that are naysayers. Especially if you have a big goal. If you have a big goal, there's going to be people that are going to walk up to you and say, "Do you really think you should try that?" You're never going to be able to do that. Well, why would you even think that? And then pretty soon it becomes almost hypnotic. Like it's like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe they're right. And pretty soon you start questioning yourself, because the people around you are questioning your motives and your goal and your aspirations. And so that was kind of the idea in the book, where is just to kind of give awareness of who your allies and who your enemies, in a sense, to your goal. And so you really have to pay attention to what people are saying. You can note it, but you really have to ignore some things, because if you are trying something that's remarkable, someone is going to say you shouldn't do that for whatever reason. They're going to try to derail you in some way, and that people find themselves back to square one again, because they have family members who are negative. They have friends that say, "Really?" And they have associates who say, "You know what? I don't believe you have the skills to do that." And those type of things happen to people all the time. And that's the gravity. That's always pulling you down. And so you have to really find a way to get through that, and really, and like I said, stay focused, stay on your goals, and then find people that really do support what you want to do. And that's helpful if you can find those people.
Yeah, that's very, very important to have people around you that really support you in what you want to do. They may not understand it 100%, but they support you in what they do. I know when I was in Las Vegas and I was performing out there were many people that didn't believe that I did this or I did that. And then they finally came to see me perform, and they went, "Wow, you really can do it." And I've always been a person, don't let anything stop you. I think I quoted you on the phone the other day that there was a famous saying by Johnny Unitas: if you take no the first time, you'll never get a damn thing done in your life. And I think that's true when people come at you, because there are a bunch of people that will always want to pull you down. You talk about the not one, the person who stays at home, avoids the workplace, stares at the walls, and comes up with their own opinion, and they choose their own way of life, and they don't listen to anybody else, and they generally end up failing. Talk about that a little bit. The person who's not necessarily the lone wolf, but there's the opposite side of the fence where you don't listen to anybody what they say, where in reality sometimes people giving you good advice, you really shouldn't try that because you really don't have the skills. I mean, there's two sides of that coin.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeking out the good mentors, seeking out people that have succeeded, and taking their experiences and inculcating that into your plan is so important, because you'll make the same mistakes they did, but you can shortcut that by finding people that have already been very successful. I have a mentor right now I talk to weekly, and this gentleman helps me through, because he's been through a lot of different stuff through his business, and I'm learning at a rapid speed because I go to him and he's already figured this stuff out, and so he gives me the best of what he's come up with, and I just incorporate that into my business, and it's accelerating. So it's that type of thing where if I just said, well, forget it, I'm going to try it myself, I don't need anybody. Well, I'm going to make the same mistakes. I'll learn slowly. I may never reach that goal. So you really have to know who's available and who's willing to give you the information, and then really take that and try it. I mean, you have to own it, but certainly, take it for what it's worth, see if it fits you, and then give it a shot. And I think that's part of it that I think is something that, once you do that, then you're able to be, very successful.
You're listening to The Express. Gary Allen with you. David Loshelder is my guest this evening with his great book, Take Care of Number One, so you don't step into number two. We're just kind of moving around the book here a little bit on the first couple of chapters. I want you to get out and get this book, because for some of you who are wondering, why do I keep making the same mistakes? What is it I can do to change? This book will answer those questions for you. And one last thing on chapter 2, you talk about the environment. You talk about the gravity of life. It's like slapping you in the face. What do you mean?
Yeah, you wake up in the morning and you say, that's going to be a great day. And you walk into your shower and there's no water. And then you go downstairs, you get dressed, you go to work, and you find out there's a flat tire. You call AAA. They say they'll be there in 20 minutes. They take an hour and a half. Now you're late for work. You get every single red light and the slowest people driving to work that you can find. Yeah. And finally you get to work and you say, oh, okay, I'm here. And you find out that the 3 people have called off and you have 3 times the work that day that you usually don't have. Then, Jane walks in and says, hi, Dave, how are you? And I snap at her and say, what do you want? Well, just nothing that Jane did. It was just my day that happened right before I came to work, and all that stuff can happen to you. My interpretation of that day is determined on how I'm going to feel about it. And so, so things are going to happen. The environment's going to whip you some days, and you have to kind of take that for what it's worth. And you hear people say, I have a friend of mine, he's so laid back. He's like, yes, it is what it is. And he just accepts it. And he accepts what happens. And then if he can accept it, he doesn't get worked up about it, and he's able to kind of move forward. And he's very consistent. He's a leader. His people, trust him. They like him. And that's because he's able to live in such a way where he's able to keep himself balanced. And I think that's what I mean by the environment. The gravity of life, the environment will pull you. And it's your interpretation of that makes the difference between, how you're going to feel, how you're going to behave, and how you're going to act.
You also talk chapter 7, the Champions Trio, scoring a hat trick, tricking life. What do you mean by the Champions Trio?
Yes, with every champion, there's going to be three things. And the first thing is criticism. You're going to be criticized, regardless of what you do. And so, some people take criticism and it really kind of hurts them. It hurts the ego. The champions are the ones that take the criticism and they use it as information. And so if you can take out the emotion and just use the content of the criticism, you may learn a lot. And so that's where, we did it a while back at a 360, and I was part of this 360 leadership, and each person would grade you basically. And so you get the people above you, the people below you, and the people that are your coworkers. And so then you get the results back. And I remember getting my results back, and there was some things I didn't like. And I was like, geez, they really feel that way about me? And it really bothered me. It really hurt my ego. Because I thought, of course, I started making excuses and, you sort of justify it. And then after a week goes by, as I calm down a little bit, I'm like, they're right. That's something I really, I really learned about myself by taking that information. But when I really heard it the first time, it really hurt. And that really, my defense mechanisms went up. And you're not going to learn anything with your defense mechanisms very high. So you have to kind of cool yourself down and use the information. So that's important.
I think criticism is probably the toughest obstacle in anybody's life to probably get over, because some people don't take it well, even when it's meant well. Some people don't like criticism, period, whether it's good or bad. And some people don't even listen to it. As I said earlier, somebody sitting in the White House, he doesn't like criticism no matter whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. He fights against it. And I guess the word ego is what I'm looking for. You have to put aside as a leader your ego and accept the criticism, because through the criticism is the growth. Yeah.
It absolutely is. It is the growth, because you're getting raw information that it's critical, and it's critical because it's picking apart what's wrong, but it's criticism when you feel bad about it and you get defensive. So you have to get rid of the criticism and just listen to the critical part of it, and then use the raw data. And once you do that, then it really can make a difference. And that's where the thick skin of a leader, if you want to analyze a leader, they're able to kind of separate the two,
right?
Because they're separating, that feeling to that information, and that's really kind of thick skin. That's a definite thick skin, because it's an intelligent skin. You're able to kind of think about, what really do I need, and what do I need to respond to at a certain time.
When you're giving a discussion or you're at a conference, can you easily size someone up, whether they have the potential to be a good leader or not, or does it take time for you to evaluate that person?
At this point, it's usually pretty quick. Because people say certain things and they act a certain way. So if that's congruent, if they're saying certain things and behaving, like I said at the beginning, if they're walking the walk and talking the talk, anybody could really kind of look and say, that person is pretty genuine. And I think that's the key. I think if they're a genuine person who really cares, who knows who they are and have a vision for themselves and others, I think they're pretty easy to identify. And I think that's something that's really kind of important for people to be able to do, because if you're looking for leadership positions, you want to find those people for those positions so they can lead an organization or some cause or whatever. So, yeah, right. I think I can.
Who do you look to that we would all recognize, or that you give examples of in your discussions, and of people you admire in history or what have you, that we would recognize that are really true leaders, that you say, if you learn from them, you'll learn a lot?
Oh boy, there's so many. I think the historic leaders that I can think of right off the bat. Martin Luther King would be one. That's an obvious one. And I don't laugh, but even like Oprah, when you think about someone who really kind of can take a group of people and move them.
Right.
These are the people I think of. Okay, of course, John F. Kennedy. Those guys, and then the more current leaders. I've been a real big fan of some of the sports stars that I thought have taken their sports, like a Merrill Mew, where he's taken his greatness on the ice and brought it to Pittsburgh. Kept the Penguins here, is able to kind of owns a great team. Those type of things I think are something very special, because they've really transformed themselves or transitioned themselves from great players, and they were always great people, but you can see the greatness in them as they finish their careers. And that's really, I think, for me, if you're looking at sports as stars, that's what you can. If you see that happen, and you say, "Wow," it's like that person really is special, because they were able to kind of. They weren't just a great athlete; they're a great person who's able to kind of transform themselves into a different arena, basically, to say, "Wow, they can really make a difference for others."
In a couple of minutes that we have left, we're talking to David Loshelder, who is the author of Take Care of Number One so You Don't Step Into Number Two, which I still, 7 Ways to Manage Yourself So You Can Effectively Lead Others. This is a great book. Please go out and get it. And David's been 2 things. Is humility a wonderful sign of leadership? In other words, most of the people that you mentioned, except for Oprah, are relatively humble. I've been in her company, and my late wife, did some advertising for her when we lived in Chicago. But is humility a good part of your personality to have?
Yeah, when you say that, I work with a lady who is probably the most humble person you've ever met, but almost like everybody went to this and talked with her and needed her advice, and she was a genuine leader, and she's always saying it's not me, it's us. She's always so really, yeah, I mean, that really is a very powerful aspect and characteristic of a leader. You get the things vary, right? And so you have people that are in positions where you have the media, giving them, certain accolades or whatever. But then when you really meet somebody and they really are humble, it's like, wow, that makes a difference. Yeah. That person is really kind of somebody that's very special, and you do want to follow that person,
Yeah, that I've always found the people that are a little bit on the humble side, I really enjoy being around. Finally, with the minute that we have left, a minute and a half, what do you want people to take away from this wonderful book, most of all?
Oh, I really want people to, think about, setting a goal, believing in themselves, striving for that goal, and then giving back to others, and always, whatever they can give from their experiences, give back to somebody else. That to me is the most important part. And, that's the reason I wrote the book, because I wanted to give back to others from my experiences and hopefully, affect other people's lives in a positive way.
Well, David, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on The Express. It has been a pleasure to have you on, and please go out and get this book, Take Care of Number One so You Don't Step Into Number Two. And David Loshelder, who is a wonderful man and an athlete and a success story, and you can learn a great deal from this book. I am still continuing to read it. I haven't finished it yet, but I am looking forward to that. And David, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with us here on The Express.
It's been great. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much, Gary.
You're more than welcome, sir. And I want to thank all of you out there for taking the time to join us here on The Express. Again, you can catch me on Facebook at Gary Allen, youtube.com for my past shows. This show will be posted on Friday, Thursday at 7. It repeats itself on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com, as well as progressivevoices.com on their demand channel. 24/7thesound.com. You can catch it on Saturday mornings at 5 a.m., as well as TuneIn and Google Play. I want to thank everybody out there for taking a few minutes out of your day. EW back in the studio for taking care of all the buttons and whistles and bells. And until next time, have a happy 4th of July. I won't be with you next week, but have a happy 4th. And until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other.
You've been listening to The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.